So by now, a lot of the Sonic fans have heard Tangle's and Whisper's voice that was recently released in one of the episodes of Chaotix Case Files.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for calling! We're always happy to help, especially when something's going down here in our own backyard. Isn't that right, Whisper? Sure.
Now, this is pretty exciting news in my opinion, and of course really awesome news for Sonic fans that are a fan of the IDW comics, which are of course canon to the actual story, like the official timeline and the franchise itself. However, even though that this is really good news, us the Sonic fans have to think about how much this will impact the future as they use both characters' voices and the characters themselves as the franchise continues. I mean, for a decent amount of time, these characters were just IDW comic characters exclusive, and of course didn't appear in any mainline Sonic game, except Tangle was mentioned in one of the Sonic lines found in Sonic Frontiers.
I bet Tangle would love climbing around these ruins.
So now that these characters have voices, how will this impact the future of the Sonic franchise if they continue to use these two characters in the future mainline Sonic games? Well, Sonic is from the 90s, right? And back then, voice acting in video games weren't as common as they are now. So it obviously took some time. It took up to around 1998 to finally hire a voice for Sonic to speak and communicate. Unless of course you include that little voice line from Sonic CD whenever he gains a life. So with these two characters, obviously their voice wasn't introduced until now, which is actually pretty crazy considering that they're actually canon to the actual story. But it has finally been done. But there are a few other characters that are still in the IDW comics, for example Dr. Starline, who probably will have a similar situation going on once that character is given a voice, if that ever happens, just like these two characters. So with these two voices already been revealed, or at least just given a voice actress, we will still have to wonder of how they're going to play out other characters from the IDW comics original, such as Ruff, Tumble, Dr. Starline, etc. Because imagine this, like, if they were going to make one last Sonic game for the entire Sonic franchise to end expertly, I feel like introducing every single character from the IDW comics, side characters, even though they don't appear much, having them all together at once as they fight off evil for the very last Sonic game will probably be something. Yes, I am talking about including Tangle, Whisper, Dr. Starline, because obviously he's one of the main antagonists. Maybe even Ruff and Tumble and any other IDW comic characters or any other side characters, maybe even little helpers, maybe even a few dead characters will return, stuff like that. One thing to think about these two characters, now that they're given a voice, is really important because this could mean that they could now appear in future mainline Sonic games and then add more important information to the story and to the franchise as it goes on. Since they are actually canon to the actual story, I would not be surprised if they actually played a huge role in future mainline Sonic games as it continues. Even if they're not playable characters, like not entirely like Sonic Superstar, Sonic Dream Team, Sonic Forces, and 06, for example. Even playing as them a little bit, even if they're seen as side characters, and then actually having their voice actually communicate and talk important information to other characters is what's gonna help the franchise out. Speaking itself is just like a way of communication, right? You talk how you feel, you talk of what you think about stuff, what is important and what's not. It's basically how people express themselves whenever they're angry, whenever they're sad, or they just need to talk to you about something important. Some people will obviously disagree that they are better only in the IDW comics and just not being in mainline Sonic games, but having all characters remember, like especially in the very last Sonic game, because I feel like every good character and every evil character and pretty much every character from the franchise, well, I will say they will have to return for like the last Sonic game. Now, when that ever happen, I don't know if that will ever happen. I mean, it has to at some point, right? Because let's be honest, everything has to come to an end, and I feel like combining all these characters from all these past media, including Tangle and Whisper and any other antagonists and characters from the IDW comics, I mean, we do need these two characters as well as some of the villains to actually communicate in the very last Sonic game, because let's be honest, with no communication, it's just how things are going to get all over the place. If we had no voices, we would not have been agreeing or disagreeing, or maybe be even more logical about reasons, like writing a statement, for example, like a whole full-blown argument of, hey, I don't like this Sonic game because this is too hard, go a little more depth into that, the boss fights are too tough, just go a little bit more depth in that, because I'll just give an example of that because they last too long and that takes up a lot of the levels. Instead of the levels taking up most of them, it feels like the boss fights take out more than the actual levels. Starts, yeah, Superstars, I'm looking at you, and so on and so forth. That's basically the way of communicating with a voice. Or if, of course, not showing disrespect, but basically, even if it's just dialogue, like for these two characters, like even writing it down or just drawing it in a picture, even, it's just how people communicate and how they express their feelings and thoughts about something. And now that these two characters have voices, we will probably most likely see an improvement on the Sonic franchise, and they will probably play a big role, an extremely big role, in the future mainline Sonic game. So in my eyes, I would say this is really important. It was really good that they gave these characters voices after a decent amount of time. I say it is probably one of the most important things that Sega has ever done. And I also would not be surprised if they did bring IDW comic characters and bring them into the mainline Sonic games, give them voices, and then of course they have huge roles in the future mainline Sonic games that are upcoming. We don't know what they're going to look like yet, obviously, and maybe until the franchise ends, we'll basically know how each character sounds, what their real intentions is, even though we kind of know what the real intentions are in the IDW comics, for example, like a few villains. I mean, I've seen them feature in the game. We'll actually make them come to life. It will make it feel more real and obviously more dramatic. Maybe not that dramatic, but basically it feel more cinematic, bringing every single character for one final showdown. Good versus evil, good versus bad, and all that. So I see potential. Not that these two characters are finally given voices. I see potential. People who are a fan of the IDW comic characters will probably be a little disappointed if they were never given a voice at least. And if they don't appear in this mainline Sonic games, those who are a fan of the IDW comics and the mainline Sonic games, that's basically fan service right there, if you want my take on it, because we want the characters to feel real, just like how the main characters are going. And then, of course, for example, Sonic going from 90s 2D classic to now a full-blown coming to life blue hedgehog with a voice. And then obviously we know how he's going to evolve over time, at least if the positive continues on. Let's not focus on negative. Let's not do that, please. Now, are the voice actresses going to agree with this? I do not know, but it will be really nice to have them voice these characters and then eventually probably make a huge impact on the Sonic franchise as it continues on with future games. Now, for the people who are not a fan of the IDW comics or have not read them, it will probably feel like to them introducing new characters, even though they were probably going to find out eventually that they're from the IDW comics, which is really important because they are important, obviously. Pretty much any important character from any Sonic media, Sonic content, and all that. And especially if they play a huge impact on the franchise, they are actually important to the actual story. I see Tangle and Whisper given voice mostly a positive side because one has to actually evaluate and think about this. It would probably definitely play a huge impact on the franchise. I see them now appearing more frequently in the mainline Sonic games more than ever before now that they're finally given voices, but that's just my speculation. It's not a guaranteed thing that will ever happen. It has not been confirmed. That's just my speculation that got me thinking, yeah, you know what, since they're given voices, yeah, this may be a huge impact. Like, I feel like they will play a bigger role in probably in the very last Sonic game or in future Sonic games, and they will probably be very extra important to the franchise because they're obviously already important characters, they're canon. So I would not be surprised if Sega went full-blown double down on them. Not that kind of down. Let's be real. My final thoughts on this is that yes, this is really important to me as a Sonic fan and as someone who has read a few of the Sonic IDW comics but have seen these characters in them. So I would say there's potential going on. They may appear more frequently, but it's not a guarantee. It may just be for Racing Crossroads if they give them a voice, but I would not be surprised if they actually continue to show up and then just play a huge role to people who are the fan of the IDW comics and the mainline Sonic games. I'll let you guys be the judge in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think.